We'll switch over to the mayor. But like I said, we are part of the National Day of Civic Hacking. There are 30 events going on around the country. They are all sorts of different things. There's a design-a-thon in Oakland. I think Philadelphia is ending a month-long hackathon, and Hawaii is starting a month-long hackathon today. Cool. And apparently I'm live.
Right.
Hello online. There are all sorts of things. New York City is in fact focusing on its 311 data today, which coincidentally we are going to do some of today as well. LA is doing an education hackathon, so there's all sorts of cool things. But we're going to be the coolest, right? So before all that, the basic business, thanks as always to the City of Sacramento, our sort of foundational sponsor for the year via the Rails grant, and also thank you to Trinity Technology Group, our event sponsor for today. We're very thankful for their support for this event. Thanks also to the whole Code for Sac core team and volunteers. Code for Sac core team, say hi. That's them. Code for Sac core team, everybody. Everybody, Code for Sac core team. And you'll meet them throughout the day. But we'll all work together and do some cool things. Thanks also to individual donors. We got a couple of folks who donated, when they signed up, so thank you to them. Very much appreciated. And to Pete's for donating the coffee this morning. Thank you to them. Also, thank you as always to the Urban Hive for providing us with this awesome space to work in. We couldn't do what we're doing without a space to do it, so thanks to them. We are a Code for America brigade, which means we follow the Code for America Code of Conduct. If you have come to a Code for Sacramento Hack Night, you've heard me go through this many, many times. But if you have not, we expect that we are a safe and respectful environment for all participants. We strive to build tools that are open and free technology for public use. We prioritize access for and input from those who are traditionally excluded from the civic process. We work to ensure that we can. So that's a little bit of what we're working on, but also your ideas are welcome. So if you came, you're not really into any one of those three things, or you don't feel it fits your skill set or your desire to what you work on, you can pitch something else. So we're going to hear from each of those three projects. But if you came maybe wanting to work on something else, you're welcome to pitch that idea when we're done with those. So if you've got that in the back of your head, start thinking about that so you can talk about that in a little while. But basically, we're just trying to get things done that benefit our community. It's pretty straightforward. It's essentially a long hack night, and I'm pretty excited about it. So that's what we're doing today. We will, whenever we hear from the mayor, we'll hear from the mayor. But other than that, we've got pitches. So the three things that I was talking about are Citigram, Councilmatic, and the Housing Data Hub. So you'll hear from the folks who are working on each of those things here in a bit, as well as anything else that you want to pitch. Then we'll break out and hack. We will have lunch in the 12:30 time frame. We'll get somebody to get that. You will have food all day, so worry not about that. I know what fuels hackers. There's caffeine and food. Then you'll hack some more. And then it's 5 o'clock-ish, and we'll sort of get the feel of what everybody's doing and how productive they're being. But sometime around the end of the day, we'll come back and demo what we've been doing. So if you've made some real progress, you've deployed something, you've got a new page on the Housing Data Hub, something, we'll come back and see what that looks like. And then we even have a little happy hour. We're going to have access to the beer back there. So if you want to hang out and have a little happy hour with us afterwards, you are more than welcome to do that as well. So that is the agenda for the day. Are there any questions at this point? He pauses. He hears nothing. All right. Then I'm going to move on to the pitches. So I've got, first off, the Citigram folks. So there are several folks here potentially to talk about Citigram and 311. We've got Chris Hobson of the city, recently of the city, I don't know. Still of the city.
But until, a month ago, there was no real easy way for them to do it. At that time, we started populating all the data up to Esri about every 10 minutes. And now it's available through a public API. 5 minutes? I was corrected, every 5 minutes. So now it's there, right? It's up on a map, you can visualize it, but there's still no real way for people to get pushes to them for stuff in their neighborhood. They've been relying on me to send them flat files on a monthly basis, which that's not fun for anybody. right? So CityGram's going to solve that problem, right? You're able to sign up for the notifications you want for your neighborhood and get it pushed to you in some sort of like standard text format. So that's about what I know about this. So I'm mostly here for kind of expertise in what is in the data. But Ryan or Gavin, do you guys want to add a little more to that, or?
Go Gavin.
I guess I'll introduce what goes on with CityGram here.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I want to thank the folks at the city. They've made some really great strides in the last year in terms of being responsive in the data that they're putting out. As Chris has said, is that we are now getting updates every 5 minutes, which is pretty substantial. And what it allows us to do as Civic hackers is be more responsive to our community members. What CityGram is going to do is allows you to subscribe to your city. Right now we have a pull request out. We do not see Sacramento up here, but it is in a pull request. We're hoping to have it approved soon. But you say select Miami, and then you could select a different topic. So for example, if you wanted to see building permits, if you mind clicking through on that, is that you could type in your address, and if you type in an address and then you could select a certain amount of radius, it will populate on that map different occurrences for building permits. And from there, you could subscribe to either SMS or email, and it will send you a digest. For email, it's a weekly digest. SMS is usually daily, pretty quick. So say if you're interested in building permits, you could actually subscribe to them. I did it live, but that means that we have an opportunity. So we need to introduce some type of testing suite, RSpec, Minitest, something along those lines. We also need to add a build integration, so whenever a pull request is made, it automatically tests against that suite. And then from there, we need to build out some endpoints and do some refactorings. So there's a variety of technical aspects. And then going back to this is that there is some product aspects, us having a discussion of like what would a consumer actually want. I think I moved kind of fast. I have a tendency to talk quickly when I have caffeine. So are there any questions so far? Yes.
Is it within the scope of what we're doing today to make a prototype, say, Android app that would access the GPS of the Android and access this database and come up with proximity information based on the?
That is not a requirement. With the requirement here, this is these are just API endpoints that interact with the CityGram's main application. So if you go back to, Joel, would you mind going back to that original CityGram website?
Oh, CityGram.
Yeah. Is that when you go here and you subscribe here, you select your city?
No, I understand. I'm not saying that that's how this works.
Yeah.
I'm saying is that within the scope of this coding that we're going to be doing today to make an auxiliary app that works off of the GPS and also accesses the building permit data, say.
So that wasn't part of the original intent.
Yeah, but if you want to work on that, we certainly wouldn't say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to see that work. That'd be great.
Okay.
If there's a problem in our community, let's look to see how we can solve it. So if that's a solution we want to pursue, let's see what we can do.
Yeah, that's sort of like an additional pitch with the same data,
yeah.
Essentially. It's like he's implementing this, but if you had another thing to implement using that same data, that'd be fantastic.
Was there a preference for the framework that you wanted to be used for the testing that you mentioned?
I have no preference. I've used RSpec in the past, that's what I'm familiar with, but if there are other people on the project that have another testing suite.
RSpec?
Yeah, RSpec.
Okay.
But I know that there's Minitest as well. If there are, it's whatever the project group wants to come up with. I am agnostic as to that. I'd rather see something that is implemented that is well tested more than anything.
Yeah.
So as long as CI can build it, I'm cool with it. Any other questions? Concerns? Yes?
I have a question. So when you sign up for CityGram and you're choosing the 311 services, do you only have the choice of doing 311, like all of the services of the endpoints that were generated, or do they choose additional, like within the 311, like which 311 services they want to be notified by, or do we package it for them?
We package it for them. So we have total control destiny on this one. If we want to provide certain endpoints, we get to build them. If we don't want to surface certain things, we don't surface them. So it's kind of up to us what we want to surface. Fortunately for us, we have 2 subject matter experts here that can give us really good insight as to data that's currently in there, what it's used for, and we can come up with a group to kind of mine grapes for that information. Yes.
Is this all just is there any user interface to this, or is it just like the APIs? Like, what is accessing what? Does the Citigram make requests to our
yes.
that this is providing?
Yes, so what ends up happening is Citigram has some background jobs that are ran, I believe, every 10 minutes. They're just kicked off, and those background jobs retrieve the model from within Citigram that has information as to what URL it should be hitting, and that URL is what we're building.
Okay, and that URL, is there a specification on what kind of data that is returned? How does like?
Yes.
How does Citigram know where to put the data it gets?
Fantastic question. There is documentation provided by Citigram as to the format of what the data should be, so it stores it correctly within their database.
Okay.
And we have the Citigram Sacramento API repo has a single endpoint implementer right now that's very basic that provides the format. So we have an example of what the data should look like, but the segmentation is very poor right now. It's retrieving everything from animal care within the last, I think, 5 days. So it's not as segmented as it should be. So if someone subscribed right now, they would get everything from a stray animal to, hey, I want to register my dog.
Okay.
Cool. What's the total size of the existing base?
I'm not entirely certain.
You know, like how many megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes would it take to download a clone of the database?
Oh, of the Citigram database?
Yeah.
I do not know. I do not have access to that Postgres database. For our,
Are you just talking about the City 311 data?
All. You know.
The 311 data that you're seeing here right now is around 55 megs. I know that
okay.
because I
So
downloaded it three days ago.
That's pretty doable.
Yeah.
So let's save any more detailed questions for a breakout on that.
Sounds good.
And we'll move on to the next project. Thank you, Gavin and Chris. And all right, cool. Moving right along, let's do Councilmatic. So we've got. Chris, take it away.
Hi, I'm Chris. I moved to Sacramento 3 months ago, which is why I had to talk about this, because I came from a place where Councilmatic was implemented recently. But yeah, so Councilmatic is basically a way to scrape data about things happening in a city council or a legislature of some sort, and display it in a user-friendly way. And luckily, Sacramento uses the same background infrastructure as the other places where Councilmatic has been implemented, which is this system called Legistar. And so the way that Councilmatic works is that there are a series of scrapers that people have built over the years that pull data from Legistar, import it into an API, and then Councilmatic itself is a Django app that calls that API and then actually displays all of this information about what the Sacramento City Council is doing in a usable, searchable, subscribable way. And so it started 5 years ago in Philadelphia, and has since expanded to New York, Chicago, LA, and is there another one?
Boston?
Yeah, maybe. But I actually I just moved here from Chicago in June. And in Chicago, I worked as a reporter at a public radio station. I use Councilmatic all the time because it was the easiest way to actually figure out what the Chicago City Council had been up to, keep track of legislation, and also look back at previous actions and figure out why is there a law that allows the police department to tow your car when it's not snowing in December, even though the ticket is for snow tows. And you can look up that legislation in Councilmatic. And so it provides an easy way to track specific pieces of legislation, but then also city councilors, what sort of things they've been introducing and voting on, In Chicago, it's not that interesting because everyone just votes for the mayor, but in other places, it can be more interesting. And so this whole setup is just a way to make it easier for citizens to see what their elected officials are doing. And so what we'll be working on today is implementing the scraper for Sacramento, building out the API to actually serve that data, and then building out the Django app that reads and displays all of that. So if you have any experience web scraping or coding in Python or anything like that, we would happily take your skills today.
Absolutely. That was great. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, that was great. So the one thing I wanted to talk about, I'm Ash, I'm from this city. So the city council does like a lot of different things, and it's really hard to follow like what is actually going on. So we have our annual budget, and there's a budget process, and we spend upwards of $1 billion a year. But if you care about like a particular issue, it's really hard to pull up the city council agenda every week, scan the whole thing, and figure out what it is in that long list of items is something that you care about and you want to follow. And so we're also thinking about like what would be future features we could add to Councilmatic. And so in addition to just identifying sort of who's doing what, the ability to maybe do some machine learning and come up with some general categories and topics that people could subscribe to and sort of follow the progress and get notifications about issues that we care about is something that we could definitely think about implementing. So this is a really exciting project. I think today, hopefully, we can get something up and running, and then we can start to iterate and do some user testing around how it can actually solve problems, real problems for people who are really interested in what the city council is up to. So thanks.
Cool.
Any questions?
Yeah.
We're going to take
Sure.
questions.
10 questions.
This is a more general question beyond Sacramento. Does the city have to use Legistar for Councilmatic to be effective? And isn't like Granicus like the major one that most cities use?
I can't speak to what.
Actually, the Register is from Granicus.
Ah, great. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and the answer to your question is really, it's no, it doesn't have to be Legistar or Granicus. It's really, you just would have to build your own scraper. So there are already open source scrapers that work for Legistar and Granicus. There are a couple of other vendors, so you may, if it were a different city that uses a different system, that's fine, but once the data is scraped, it gets transformed, and then you can dump it into a standardized format that would work across all Councilmatic instances.
Yeah, Councilmatic works on the Open Civic Data API structure, and so as long as you have data that you can export in that format, it'll work with you.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I might have missed it, but can you see like how the council has previously voted, or like see their history?
Yeah.
How far back does the current Legistar data go, and will Councilmatic go back that far, or the scraper will go all historical on us?
Yeah, I mean, usually the way these things work, correct me if I'm wrong, Margula, like at the time of implementation, that's when a lot of stuff sort of starts to get populated. But we've had Legistar for a pretty long time, right?
Yes and no.
5?
If you have any challenge with the data, let me know. I can give you a JSON file, what is behind this.
Oh.
So you may can like that.
Oh, okay.
That's probably easier.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting to have historical data there,
Yeah.
Have asked questions about what happened, why, or things that they already know about.
Yeah, I forget how far back the Chicago one goes, but it's a number of years. It's like,
Can you
And then
filter by
like just a few years.
There you
No,
go.
when you start your own instance, you can scrape back. The Chicago one takes an hour to scrape and move all the way from its whole list.
So just on that, if they have them in books in the library, I guess you could scan those books in if they haven't already been scanned, and then OCR out the data and then upload it in, right?
So for this next year, we're going to bring a bunch of books and people are going to hand enter all the old
Hand enter.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
how often would you like the Legistar data to be updated onto the Council-matic? Because I'm not sure it's going to be like X-Ray Maps where it's being updated every 5 minutes. How would you like?
The other sites normally run once a day.
Once a day?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we could, if you guys had suggestions on that.
Yeah, I mean, our workflow at the city is basically we have council meetings are usually on Tuesdays, and we usually post the agenda on Thursdays. So you could even just have it run weekly for those council meetings. But then there's what are called committee hearings that are a little more irregular, but well, they're regular. They're just less frequent than the council meetings, and so you could sync everything up, but you wouldn't need to do it more than once a day for sure.
It looks like Legistar data goes back to August of 2016.
Okay. Good to know.
That's not very far. Anything else? Cool. Thank you guys. And we'll break out and continue talking about that.
Yep.
Thanks. All right. Moving on to our third major project. We have the Housing Data Hub, and we have Ms. Maya Wallace.
Thanks, Ryan. Good morning, everybody. So this project has been moving along in fits and starts and isn't super organized, and I apologize, but it's because I do this in my free time. So Ryan and I started talking about how to help Sacramento work on increasing density so that we can have more housing in the city limits and just generally serve the public better by having access to information on the housing market. And as you know, the housing market is extremely impacted, as it is everywhere. So we have forked the Code for San Francisco Housing Data Hub website. So that's the basis of this site. And Joel, can you go to my project page on GitHub? I put stuff on it. Projects. Yeah. So despite the fact that that site's there, we don't really have a lot of work to do to populate it. So I pulled some issues from our GitHub repo into this project tracker. And then each of these issues sort of has a description and some links, although not an exhaustive set of links. So you'll have to be doing some research in order to populate it. But essentially what we want is a high-level overview of what factors drive the housing market in Sacramento, a definition of affordability. We have a vision of affordability, and then there's actually like the federal definition of affordability. So sort of helping people distinguish between those two things. Tracking our overall housing development in the community, like in the city and in the county, depending on what data is available. And that's not linked, so you can go find that. And then also specifically affordable units by that federal definition, which means 30 to 60% of average median income. So this is an opportunity to get a really deep education on housing policy. But it's also an opportunity to have a centralized repository on housing information that is generally, apolitical, nonpartisan, and is a good resource for everyone in the community, because there isn't anything that's centralized like that that's not also politically affiliated and has an agenda. So we want to be nonpartisan, Code for Sacramento.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So come join me, or just have a look at these issues.
And there's like finding data, there's visualizing data, there's creating more pages for the site.
Right.
There's all sorts of things that can be done with the Housing Data Hub.
Yep. And all the data is out there. It's just all over the place.
Yes. So I spent some time trying to find some data over it. It takes a little work.
Is there any questions?
Yeah, well, you were talking about what factors actually drive the housing markets, and I'm assuming that's just a page that'll display the analytics that just shows which factors are going into that.
Yeah, like how many units do we have for sale, for rent, vacancy rates, population or households.
Well, right, but is parking that in your thing, and what kind of like scraping software would you we use for that? Like, do you want one that updates once
That's-
a day?
This,
That's for
it's
Ryan.
not live. It's all CSV based. So this is a static web page. It's using Jekyll, and it's CSV driven. I went through and changed everything. So using the American Community Survey and a couple other data sources to kind of repopulate all the data so it's Sacramento centric. But it uses C3, which is a lightweight version of D3 to visualize everything. So you have geographic and also graphing power within this.
So is that incorporated with any GIS right now? So that way you can see a visual map? Or?
It's not any live GIS, it's all JSON.
Oh.
Yeah, but I would love to try to get this into being able to incorporate live APIs. So I know the county actually puts out every home sale with price, and in the last like 2 years, they actually put out how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, and stuff like that, square footage. So you can scrape that, it's on their data site.
What coding language were you hoping to implement this in?
This
Ryan's
is
my technical support.
Yeah.
Technical advisor.
I had to teach myself Jekyll, and I had no idea how it works, and I still kind of don't. Like, I think it's black magic how it all happens. But it's HTML, and then whatever Jekyll, it's Ruby, I think, in the back end, but don't quote me on that.
So, I tell you what, why don't we hold off other questions on that point for now and go back a couple pages in our agenda, because I've noticed we've been joined by Mayor Darrell Steinberg. So, welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Nothing like a politician to interrupt it. Otherwise, conception. But thank you for the opportunity, because you know, Ash briefed me, you know, on this over the last couple of days, and I really wanted to just come by and tell you how excited I am about what he describes, and I get it as the new form of volunteerism in Sacramento. You know, not that I'm old, because I'm not, but during my first round of public service on the city council, the way that people volunteered, and still do in many respects, is to spend a Saturday cleaning a park or planting flowers or, you know, doing some form of beautification or cleanup. And that's great, and that's still really important. And yet, we have so many talented people in this city who have skills that weren't around back 20 or 25 years ago, and I'm looking at all of you, who can help us think about better ways to serve the public. I always think about it this way. What is going to create for people a satisfying user experience with their city and with their government? And Lord knows we hear a lot of people who are dissatisfied with their experience with their government. What is going to make it easier for people to get the answer to a question that they have about their neighborhood or about their housing choices? What is going to put people in touch with a live, warm human being who can talk them through how to solve a particular problem? I think you have the answers to those questions. At least I know you're working on the answers to those questions. The 311 project is a great example. 311 may in fact be a great modality for people to be able to call and get some help with something. But there's no accumulation that I know of real-time data. There's no notification to affected neighbors or to people who may be experiencing a similar challenge or problem. And so we're not maximizing the utility of that resource. You're working on affordable housing. How great it would be if somebody who was desperately looking for a place to live, or as we work to solve this homeless problem, which by the way is your mayor, I made maybe the political error of saying, we get 2,000 people off the streets over the next 3 years, or hold me accountable at the end of those 3 years. And I meant it. I don't think it's a mistake, actually. It's just not sort of a traditional thing that a public official does, because we've got to set a goal and we need to hold ourselves accountable to it. But how much easier it would be if we had a technology base to be able to match people readily with an available place to live with this, and connect them to the service providers without having to go through the days or the weeks of doing that, you know, in the traditional way that we do that. And so the city is changing, maybe not fast enough, but we're trying to create open data platform. We are trying to be on the cutting edge. In many respects, we are. Look, when you look what's happening, for example, we get a $44 million grant through the Air Resources Board, to the Volkswagen settlement, to be the lead city in the state to electrify our vehicles in California. Verizon, all the excitement around art and culture. There's so many great things happening in this city. We need your help to make sure that all the things we are doing are accessible to more people, information-wise and otherwise. So I just want to say thanks. Our city is also, we're risk takers. I'm not afraid. As your mayor, I just tell people I'm in my 21st year of public life. This is all gravy to me in terms of my own career. I want to take some healthy risks. I want to get out there. I want to innovate. And so you have license to come up with the craziest of crazy ideas, and let's see if it really helps people, and we'll figure out a way to get it done. So I just want to say thanks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've heard from the mayor. Crazier the better.
Any questions? Questions, thoughts? Yes, sir.
Well, you actually said you wanted a base that actually match people with the data housing hub. So you actually want an option on that website where people can just put in their annual salary and it can actually match them. Hey, you can look at this payment on this house, etc.
Yeah, I assume some of the real estate sites have those sorts of things, but there are many. We've got a housing crisis at many levels, right? We have very low vacancy rate. We have not enough new construction, although we're trying to incentivize new construction. So I think we need to understand trends. We need to understand best practices in other cities. We also need for people, regardless of their particular challenge, whether they're working and can't find an affordable place to live. Again, this homeless issue, or people are at the risk of homelessness. I've got this idea, for example. Here's one for you, man. Please. So, the city is the only city in the state that received what's called the Whole Person Care Grant. We got a $64 million grant from the federal government to do intensive outreach and case management to access 3,250 people who are either homeless or at risk of homelessness over the next 3 years. We combine that with the county's mental health resources, which we're trying to partner with them to gain access to their resources. We have an opportunity to get 2,000 people off the streets. But here's what I worry about. I worry about many things. What if we get 2,000 people off the streets, but the problem is no better because they're replaced by 3,000 new people who become homeless because they either can't pay their rent because of escalating rents or low vacancy rates or a myriad of reasons. So in Chicago, they piloted a project where they gave $1,000 to people and or families who could show, and the proof point, and this is where you could be of some help, where people were able to show that they had an unanticipated medical expense, they lost a job, an increase in rent meant that they were unable to pay the rent and they were going to join the ranks of the homeless in Chicago, Illinois. So they give these people $1,000. And what the longitudinal data showed is that these folks, when you did the mode and the median and all that, they increased their tenancy an average of 2 years. Simple idea. So I wonder if there's a technology idea for how we determine whether someone would be an appropriate recipient of that kind of assistance, because you can see the challenges, right? Could you be over-inclusive? Would you be under-inclusive? We don't have free money to give away, but if it means helping people avoid homelessness, I mean, I love the simplicity of the idea, right? It takes years to construct new housing, but you can keep people in their existing housing. We get people off the street and prevent the next cohort of 2,000 people from becoming homeless. We got a chance to make this problem significantly better in our community. So how would you set up a user-friendly way to both access such a resource if we were able to provide it, and to determine the eligibility in a way that would be fair and that would get the job done?
Could look at their Equifax credit report.
That is an excellent idea. Problem solved.
That's actually not a trivial problem, but Sacramento did have a similar program called the Homelessness Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Program that was stimulus funded. But I think with the stimulus funding gone away, the program has essentially gone away. But there were local nonprofits that were interviewing people to enter the program, so it's maybe a good idea to talk to them, figure out what they did to onboard people.
To onboard people, exactly. But is there the tech? I bet they didn't use a lot of technology.
They did. There was a lot of in-person interviews.
Exactly.
And the social service programs are fantastic, but they're often fragmented, and so I just wonder if there's a way technology could assist with this.
Well, don't expect it today.
I won't, but I plant the seed. Thank you.
Well, Darrell, you know what
Maya?
we did? Sorry.
Okay.
I'm like, now that you've mentioned it. So what we did want to do with the site, the Housing Data Hub, is have a survey function that enables us to see geographically the way rents are changing across the city.
Yeah.
And map that to what the median income is for those like census tracts. And so that would sort of give you at least a rough measure of where people were in danger of being displaced.
Well, I like that. Well, so can I, one more second? There's another one. So rent control is a hot topic in the city, and I have very mixed views on it. I think pure rent control is a mistake because you don't want to disincentivize investment in new construction. On the other hand, rent gouging, which is, one person's gouging is another person's control, but rent gouging, where people are really being treated unfairly, I think we ought to prevent. So then you look at the rental market and you ask, who is a renter by choice and who is a renter by necessity? The people who are renting condominiums, for example, at the Kimpton Hotel, I don't think the government has a need or a role to regulate. On the other hand, people who are living in a low-income apartment complex in North or South Sacramento, who are renters by necessity, and who get their rent increase 15% in a year, we ought to have a public policy response to that. How does one determine who's a renter by choice and a renter by necessity? And then how would government protecting privacy, etc., be able to use that information to make a proper regulatory decision about whether or not a particular rent increase in a given situation was within the law or outside the law? can think of these things all day, by the way.
I think you'd start with the ratio of their amount of rent to their net worth and the ratio to their annual income.
Can you do that simply? I mean, is there a way to
you can do that
across the board?
You can do that by census tracts, I think.
Yeah, but that's...
You can't do that like for an individual without their specific information.
Yeah. They'd be incentivized to give you permission to access. If there are benefits in it, they would be incentivized to give you permission
it can be an opt-in, for example,
yeah.
Right?
And that's the way other low-income programs work. Is they sign off the rights to look at their income tax and other.
And then you'd have to share it. Is it 10 to 11? I gotta go. And then you'd share, if they opted in, you'd share it with the landlord too, because the landlord would have to know you can't increase this person's rent by more than X%.
We're talking about housing. I think that's kind of a consequence of Sacramento being a destination city.
Yeah.
As we continue to grow and be that destination city, what do you see as the challenges and opportunities in the next 3 to 5 years, and how we can contribute?
Well, I mean, the answers in your question. There's so much positive about becoming a destination city, right? We need to grow this economy. We need to grow a high-wage private sector employment base. It needs to be centered on our strengths around food, around art, around entertainment, around technology. But it will only be successful if we don't create a further economic divide. And so that's why this housing issue is so crucial and why it weighs heavily on me. The state legislature passed a series of housing funding bills that were good but not great. Were not enough money. So what are we going to do to subsidize more housing? What are we going to do to address homelessness? What are we going to do to prevent more homelessness? What are we going to do about the low vacancy rate? These are every bit as important for the future of the economy as the good stuff and how we grow jobs. I do think, you know, growing a high-wage jobs base will also incentivize more housing construction, but I worry about furthering the economic divide. And so I pay equal attention to that as I do to, you know, encouraging all the growth. I think growth is great. Gentrification is not. There you go. Thanks.
Excellent.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Gotta get somebody when I'm done to like. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about on the housing?
Were there any more questions? Or
yeah.
Yeah, sort of.
We sort of went in that.
You can just come and talk.
I'll throw one more thing out there.
Yeah.
So I'm Bernadette Austin with the UC Davis Center for Regional Change, and there's a couple of things I'm really interested in. One thing is we have a layer on one of our publicly available mapping sites that has a layer called Housing Jobs Fit. And people talk a lot about housing jobs balance, but this particular layer looks at the match between affordable housing and kind of retail service wage jobs. So I would say that might be something really interesting. Our data goes through 2014. Oh, look at him pulling it up. Thank you, interwebs. So if you go to layer when it's downloading. So there's that. Another thing is we have colleagues at UC Berkeley who have the Urban Displacement Project. And so, what's up?
Everybody always knows I want to work on that instead of my study.
I know, but I'm just saying that there are aspects of these two that I think can inform some of the work that we're doing locally. Of course, I think these pieces of data are really great, but I think that the stories that we're seeking to tell can incorporate this data from either this, which is the Urban Displacement Project, and then if you want to pull up the ROI, it's our Regional Opportunity Index, it's other. I can't read it from here, but
I can't read it.
Is it city revenues, total economic dependence, tracks with low populations and or high prisons populations?
You have to open one more, but I can't.
Jobs, housing, fit ratios.
There we go. And do the
neighborhood level.
try that one. There's one that I prefer over the other. But anyway, so you can kind of zoom in. But anyway, those are the two pieces that you're welcome to look at. I think the urban displacement project is this way, but certainly ours is where you can download the data. I think you can download the shape files, but those may be aspects that you can incorporate into.
There's also a hidden API to the ROI that nobody knows about.
Can I pitch something?
Please do.
Okay.
Come on up.
I think it's feasible to connect, or
Probably. Do you have HDMI?
I think. Oh my god.
Magic.
Hi everybody, my name is Mark Jaffe. I'm from Walnut Creek, so I had a lot of quality time on 680 and 80 this morning coming here. But it's a straight shot. It's traffic's not bad. So for people like me who live in little cities, there is no Code for America for my city. And I tend to work on a lot of projects that are national in scope, that focus on smaller jurisdictions and so forth. And I wanted to show you one. I'm not sure if this is something anyone would be interested in today, but love to make contacts with people who might be interested in hacking on this in the future. So the US has 91,000 local governments all across the country. About 30,000 of them have to file audited financial statements every year. There is no place right now where you can go to see all 30,000 of those statements, but I'm working on it. So I have, this is just for California, but this is national. I have one for every single state, and basically I have a series of crawling tools that go to different places on the web and grab these, and I also supplement with Public Records Act requests. So I'd like to continue building out the crawlers. I have a repo called Single Audit Repo. Most of these come from a federal website called the Single Audit Harvester Single Audit database. But the data, the files, the PDFs on there are not accessible to Google. They're in the deep web. So what the crawler does is it uses Selenium, crawls the census website, finds the files, renames them to something that's human readable, and then uploads them to this publicly available resource called govwiki.info. And then I just wanted to tell you that just recently ProPublica used this resource, that repo that I just showed you, to begin putting additional information into their nonprofit explorer. But because besides the 30,000 governments that file these audits, over 15,000 nonprofits file audits as well. So they've now begun adding those to the IRS Form 990 data in Nonprofit Explorer. So I think there's a lot of value here, and at least ProPublica found it out. One other quick announcement is I'm hoping to demo this at California Data Demo Day. That's going to be in Sacramento on October 19th, and that's organized by the Data Coalition. So that's my spiel. Thanks. If you want to talk to me again, either today or later on, grab me and we can exchange parts. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing none, does anybody have any burning questions? All right. Seeing none of those. If you've never been to a Code for Sacramento event, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to make a little spiel here. Yeah, go for it, Gavin.
Hello again. If you are a new member here, I kindly ask that you go up to this nice, wonderful URL. The reason I ask that is that it's a sign-up form. And that sign-up form is going to ask a few questions. Mostly, the most important aspects of it is your skills and your interests. And the reason we ask that is if a project comes up and you have a certain skill set that is in demand, we will be reaching out to you. If you have a particular interest and somebody comes along and says, hey, I'm interested in this, well, we can connect you. We get to talk about cool local hacking events. I think I know of one right now. There is also community resources and other cool opportunities that are available. Just a once again, please sign up on that form. It's a way for us to keep in contact with you. We do not have any data breaches like Equifax, and we don't share it with anybody because we're cool like that. We keep all the information here, and when you want to unsubscribe, we will unsubscribe you, so no spam. I will not take questions on this one because I went over last time.
Thank you, Gavin. All right, cool. So that is it for the talking part this morning. So if you know which one of those projects you want to work on, you can go hang out. We have both of these conference rooms available to us over here, so if folks want to break out into those conference rooms, that's totally cool. We will be deputizing somebody to go pick up lunch here in the near future. So we'll get that coming soon. And if you stay for the afternoon, I just wanted to share that our delivery lead, Caleb, oh, there he is over there, has done a very cool thing. So we have like the coolest swag ever. It's a little wooden token.
Yes.
Etched it's a magnet too. It's a refrigerator magnet too. With Hack for Change, NDOCH 2017 code for Sacramento. It's your thank you gift for being here. So you gotta stay for lunch though.
It's your own Bitcoin.
Right. That's one Bitcoin right there. Cool. So that is all I have to say. If you have any questions, feel free to come talk to me or anybody else. Gavin.
The rooms, are there specific projects in specific rooms, or are we just gonna?
We should put specific projects in specific rooms.
Okay.
Who wants the big? I know you do. So, actually, no, wait. Show of hands. Show of hands. Citigram, like primary Citigram folks. It's like maybe it's okay.
Is that the 311?
That's the 311. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Councilmatic. Councilmatic's like a dozen. Affordable housing. Yeah, it's pretty even. You can have the big one. That's fine.
It's the first one behind the big art piece there. Is that going to be the 311 room, or?
It can be.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So that's the 311 room. And we're going to like move the chairs back to a more normal configuration here in a little bit. So we can make this Councilmatic right here. And we'll call that good. All right. And Mark, like there's lots of corners too.
Yeah, okay,
and so anybody can work on anything. You can go where you need to go. Any questions?
There's also the little conference room back here.
We're not actually supposed to go back there.
Oh, we're not?
No. But I think this is actually now a conference room too.
Oh.
So that may be available to us as well. That's it. So if you have questions, come talk. Otherwise, hack.
And if anybody needs any assistance with DevOps stuff, I have the keys to servers and all that.
Yes, that's right.
If anybody's deploying anything, the guys.
Yeah, talk to Phil for deployment.
Oh, great. Thank you. We'll have a few hours at some point to
Yes.
Oh, great.
What's the population of Walnut Creek?
64,000.
Wow. I guess they were they landlocked? They didn't go bigger, or just the way it's zoned?
Well, you know, I think first of all, it's much smaller than Sacramento.
Well, Sacramento County is pretty.
Contra Costa County, which is where I live, right? That has more people, I think, than Sacramento County. It's got over 1 million people. So Walnut Creek is not the biggest city. Concord and Richmond are both pretty big cities.
Lots of places. Is El Cerrito in the mix?
El Cerrito is smaller. El Cerrito is an example of a built-out city. Like they're totally locked in.
My aunt used to live in Walnut Creek.
Yeah, I'm kind of bouncing around a couple things right now, but that's what I stood up. Yeah, just it's pretty much a straight copy of what's it really taught me how to use Jekyll. How to code that. It's a little complex at first, but once you already know the
Just got a Pokemon cards, just like I know.
And the site is
office here anymore. I know, I moved. My office used to be back there. You want to go see it? Okay, you can't really go, we can go look at it. If you're looking for toys and things of color,
not so much.
We're gonna look at a room, sure.
I like what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for buying it.
Do you have my This is Zen, Zen, this is George. He knows you.
Yeah. So, standardization of how